Hello again. Today we are now going to set up our users. We are going to set up user accounts, and for these user accounts on our domain, we also want to give them a roaming profile, and we want to also give them a home folder. So the first thing that we are going to do is to set up a store or a path, a shared path on our server where we are going to store that information. So if we go into the local drive, now in a live environment, you would more than likely have the operating system set up separately along with another partition or another drive, preferably, that is actually going to hold all the user data, and that is the drive that you'll probably want to use as the source of your, or sorry, as this storage area that is going to hold your roaming profiles as well as your user files. So in this case, what we want to do is to create a new folder, and we're going to name this folder roaming profiles. And we're going to create another one called home folders. In both cases, we are going to share this on the network. So we click on properties, sharing. We're going to click on advanced sharing. So we share this, and under the share name, we are going to add the $sign to make this a hidden share. Under permissions, we are going to add domain users, click OK, and for domain users we are going to give them full control because we want them to be able to read and write to that folder without any problems. So we give them full control. So we apply, click OK. Now why did we add that $sign? Because we do not want people simply browsing on the network to see that folder and therefore be able or be tempted to tamper with it. So it is shared, but it's not going to be visible as a share. So likewise, we are going to go to our home folder, and again we click on sharing, advanced sharing, and we share again with the $sign at the end to make this a hidden share. And we click on permissions, and we're going to add domain users, and click OK. And we're also going to give them full control. One other thing we should also perhaps remember is also the security. So we're going to go into the security aspect of it, and we're going to do some advanced changes here, and we want to change the permissions. And what we're going to do is to remove include inheritable permissions from this object's parent, because what we want to do is that we want to set our own options. So parent permissions will no longer propagate to this object. That is fine. Just in case there are any special permissions that would have been there on the drive or the folder that we created, that this roaming profile folder is going to be stored in, we do not want those permissions to adversely or inadvertently affect the user or users in any way. So, and we're just going to add them separately, and we click on apply and click OK, and OK again, once again, great. So now that we've done that, we're going to do the same for the home folder. Change permissions. And we apply. So now users will have full access to this folder. And if you'll notice at the bottom here that it is shared, once again home folders also shared. Next thing that we're going to do is to create a couple of user accounts. So we're going to go into roles, and we are going to go into our Active Directory domain services, Active Directory users and computers, the domain, and we're now going to click on users, and we're going to create a new user. So we give a first name and last name. We give him a logon name. In this case, we won't change the password. Of course, in practice, that is not the way you'd want to do it in a live environment. You would, in fact, create an initial password and have the user change it at first logon. So in this case, we're going to say that the password never expires and user cannot change password. Now you can create also an account and have it disabled upon creation. This is in case you have, let's say, a new employee who's going to be joining the company in a week's time. They've been hired, but they are not actually coming into the workplace until a week's time. So for the time being, the account is disabled until such time as you allow it or you enable it. So we're going to create a password. Hit next and finish. So our new user homeboy1 has been created, but we're not finished yet. We now go on properties for our user, and we're going to set up some information here. We go to the profile tab, and here we are going to create a profile path. And the profile path is going to be like this. You're going to enter the server name. So in this case, it's KH server. Or we can type in the fully qualified name. So we are going to continue with our profile path, and we are going to be typing the name of our share, and we are also going to add in the username. But here's the thing, rather than actually mistyping, what we're going to do is that we're going to use a specific variable that is available within Windows, and that is the %, username, %. So we're going to be looking for our server, then roaming profiles, which is the share in which it's created, and within that roaming profiles it's going to create a folder with the username. And similarly with the home folder, we're going to click on connect, and we're going to assign them a drive letter, use H perhaps, and again we're going to type in a path, and point it to the server. And once again we're going to use that variable, and we hit apply, and notice that that variable has changed it to homeboy, which is the name of our actual user. And we click OK. So our user has now been set up. Now we want to create another user. But rather than go through that whole procedure all over again, here's what we can do. We want to make a copy. So let's assume that Homeboy 2 is going to be joining the organization, and he's perhaps a very good friend of Homeboy 1, and they're also going to be joining the same department. So we want to probably give them the same permissions and so on. So there's no need to recreate Homeboy 2 as Homeboy 1 by typing over all of the details again. So here's what we do instead. Notice some of the characteristics have not changed. So user cannot change password, password never expires. Those have been inherited from the first account. So we don't need to do that all over again. All we need to do is to set a new password. And we click next, and notice it says it's a copy from Homeboy 1. So we finished. Now let's go to the configuration of Homeboy 2, and let's look at profile. Oh my, look at this. The profile path has been inherited as well. But interestingly enough, because we use that variable, Homeboy 2 now also has his own folder. Now this folder doesn't yet actually exist. It will not until the first time that the user logs in. So we click OK, but we now have 2 users set up. Now, in order to make sure that our account actually works, we're going to log in on, in this case, I'm just going to use the Vista client, and I'm going to try to log in as Homeboy, let's say Homeboy 1. And we enter his password. It's going to prepare his desktop and create a profile for him. Now if we go to computer, we should see something here. We should in fact, as we do here, see a network location for him. And notice it has been assigned drive letter H. Once again, notice to the right side of the pop-up that the drive letter H has in fact been added. So let's go into that folder, and just for the heck of it, we want to create a new, let's say we create a new text document, and we're going to give it a name. And we're also going to create a new folder, and we're going to, let's say, put this document into that folder. So here we go. And we want to also create, let's say, create a folder we want to create this folder on Homeboy's desktop. So we're done here, and he's left home after his first day of work. So he's going to log off. So we are going to now look on our server, and let's take a look at our roaming profile folder first of all. And notice we have a profile that is created for Homeboy. And if we also look at our home folder, in fact, after we created our user accounts, the home folder for each user is created. And notice the my folder one that we just created on the client machine now exists here, and his first document exists here as well. So we're going to do something fairly interesting. We are now going to log him in on Windows 7 client. So we're going to log off our existing user, and we are now going to log in as Homeboy. Now notice the folder that we created on the Vista machine now appears here. And if we go again to his computer, we notice again that he has his share. And if we go into his share, his folder, we see his my folder 1 with his Homeboy doc 1. So our profile is in fact roaming. And we're going to try this one more time on our Windows XP client. And once again, we notice that the home folder H is set up, and if we go again here, his documents are here. However, if we do notice as well, there is no folder on his desktop. Why did that happen? Let's go back to our server. And if we go into roaming profiles, we notice that there are now two profiles. There's one for Homeboy 1 and then there's homeboy1.v2. And this is because what has happened is that because Windows XP is a different version, it's an earlier version, the standard for creating a profile is different from that used by later operating systems from Vista and Windows 7 onwards. So some of the changes that will be available to the user when they are using the Windows Vista and Windows 7 versions will no longer be available in XP. They are not necessarily cross-compatible. The shares remain the same, but the desktop is not the same. So that essentially is the setup of roaming profiles and home folders for a given user. Thank you very much for viewing.